Christine, should Christians celebrate Halloween?
I think a better question is, should you celebrate Halloween? What you celebrate, you affirm. The longer I've walked with Jesus, the less I have felt conviction.
Welcome to the Kingdom Come podcast. We are your hosts, Austin Howenstein
and Derrick Jenkins.
We are two friends from college here to encourage you in your walk with the Lord.
Our desire is to help and challenge you encounter the kingdom of God in your everyday life and everywhere you go. Let's get it.
Well, welcome into the Kingdom Come podcast. Today we are joined with Christine Johns, the Chi Alpha director at UNO Chi Alpha. So we appreciate you hopping on.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is an episode I've been looking forward to because I've been, over the last couple months with it being, or not couple months, couple weeks, I've been thinking a lot about Halloween, where it's just like, so many Christians are divided on what it means to be, to honor God in this season. So let's just dive straight in. Christine, should Christians celebrate Halloween?
That is a loaded question. So I want to start with this question. I want to answer a different question. I want to answer, should Christians celebrate? And the reason why I start there is I didn't really grow up as a Christian, but I remember there was this one girl in my class who never celebrated Halloween. So she was like pulled out of stuff, and it was like socially really awkward. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so weird. I would never want to do that. And we're kind of like nominal Christians, but that was something that I kind of deemed as like weird or like other. And so I think sometimes there's a danger as Christians that we can just get caught up in like what we don't celebrate. But when you look at the Old Testament, like their whole history was built around what they celebrated. Like they had feasts, they celebrated the Passovers. And so I personally think that as Christians, we should have the most fun and that we should celebrate the most out of everyone. But I do think that we need to be really thoughtful on how we do that, because what you celebrate, you affirm. And so then the question is, should we celebrate Halloween? I think a better question is being thoughtful. What is Halloween really celebrating? Like, what are like the principles behind that? What are we exalting? What are we focusing on? And then I think as a Christian, you will find a lot of problems and issues with everything that comes along with it.
So you were saying like celebrate. So that kind of, I was thinking like you were talking about like celebrating like a certain holiday, but you're talking about in general, should Christians celebrate?
Yeah.
And then like you said, in the Old Testament, they did it a lot. And so do you think, because a lot of people may feel this way, that the Bible was written specifically to specific people at given times throughout the Old Testament and New Testament. You see letters written to specific churches with things they struggled with. Do you think there are aspects in which the Bible not doesn't fulfill well what's going on today, but do you feel like there can be issues within bringing Christianity to our modern day context within the Bible?
No, I kind of feel like especially in the New Testament, if you study like the context and the history, there's a lot, like in Corinthians, they're trying to figure out what does it look like for them to come from the backgrounds that they're coming from, but still be wholly devoted to Jesus. And so I think that's the real question of like, how do I belong to Christ in the world that I live in? And I think it speaks to just the temptation to want to kind of like ride the line and dip your toe in to the other side. So I think it's absolutely relevant.
Yeah, because in your intro part, you were talking about how like, okay, we should celebrate and we should celebrate more than anyone. And I was like, for a second, I was like, wait, where's she going with that?
Yeah.
And then you said, but we should look into what we're celebrating. So with Halloween specifically, what are we celebrating?
Right. So I will tell you, I have not always believed what I believe today. I grew up trick-or-treating, and it was a lot of fun, and it was like a wholesome part of my upbringing. It's like, man, this is an experience that I want for my kids.
Yeah.
And then even after I became a Christian in college, I still liked the dressing up thing, and just like being together. And I think there's part of it when we dress it up as like community and we dress it up as fellowship, then it all of a sudden takes like, okay, now this is okay. However, in the town where I went to college, there was like haunted houses. Mm-hmm. And so when you go to things like that, which is a part of Halloween, often you will find things that are like straight up blasphemous, not blasphemous. But you'll find things that are dishonoring to Jesus and dishonoring to God. And so I think that's the problem with being a Christian. You're paying to expose yourself to those things, and it's literally mocking what you believe is the most important thing in your life. And so it's kind of like this hard line of like, where is it fun and where is it harmless? But where are we literally opening a door? And what does the world think about Halloween? So I'm on a campus where there was this whole uproar last year because there's someone who has a house next to our campus who had Jesus on the cross, beheaded, and the devil was holding up his head. And so it was vulgar. It was yeah, all of these things coming along with it. But they said it was all in the spirit of Halloween. Okay.
In
So
New
now
Orleans.
say what you want, but if you're talking about spirits, as a spiritual person, I know what that is. And so what we're doing is we're like exalting this lie, and we're making things that we know are defeated under Jesus look like they're really powerful. And then it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now what you're celebrating is a lie. And now what you're celebrating is darkness. And now what you're celebrating is things that Jesus came to defeat. And so, you know, you just really have to be thoughtful with what you're going to do with that.
Wow.
Yeah, because that's insane. It's all in the spirit of Halloween, and that should kind of show you what the spirit is. So, like, all right, you said you always wanted your kids to be able to trick or treat because you had fun doing it as a kid. Do you let your kids trick or treat?
No.
Really?
Wow. Okay.
And
I had a feeling I was going to be convicted getting on this episode with Christine, which is why we brought you on.
So
No candy.
we don't trick or treat because, again, it's like we should be loving people and showing them Christ's love, not tricking them or treating. And then also we don't let our kids dress up, not on that day and not for that reason. I think there's any other day for a birthday party, you can dress up, you can have fun. Not on that day and not for that reason, because of what it communicates to the world that we live in. Like I said, what you celebrate, you affirm. And so when I live in a city where people say that that is the spirit of Halloween and my kids are running around, then there's an association that I just don't feel like I can afford to have. But I will say I know a lot of spiritual and people that I look up to that their kids do dress up and they do trick or treat. So I know not everyone is at the point where I've come to be.
So
what was it that kind of brought you to that point, though? Because obviously you're like this. I didn't always believe this, and it almost sounds like to some degree you didn't want to. So for you to get to this place, there had to be something that really convinced you. What was that?
Right. Well, I think maybe it's like responsibility and knowing, not just for like me and how I choose to live out my faith, but knowing that I affect other people. And so like serving as a campus missionary, there are people who look at my life and just kind of think whatever I do is right without, and so I would just hate to lead someone in a place that's like spiritually dangerous or lead them to a confusing place. And so for me, it's just safer to go on the side of like, we're not going to participate in that way. And yeah, I think I don't know, in a spiritual world, like that literally is a big day for people who worship Satan.
Yeah.
And so I don't want people to be mocking the person that I love the most by watching my kids run around, playing the game. And so we just don't play the game.
Yeah.
I will say we do celebrate on October 31st, though.
What do you celebrate?
Yeah.
It's also Reformation Day.
Huh.
Interesting.
So
I don't think I actually knew that.
October 31st is Reformation Day. That's where Martin Luther goes up to the Catholic Church and he posts the 95 Thesis, which is worth celebrating because this is a time where a lot of religious injustices were challenged. This was a time that changed the way that we live out our faith. So Christians have a reason to celebrate on October 31st. We, just kind of like pay attention. And so we do a little pancake party. It's a tradition. We call it Flapjack Fest. My kids, get to stay up late. So we do fun stuff. And so they're not missing out on what's fun. It just looks different than the way that, other people celebrate on that day.
Well, that's interesting. I never knew that.
That's crazy.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about, like in your opinion, what do you think about like churches who like try to use it as a tool, because obviously the heart is we all know like the darkness that is associated with Halloween.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about you trying to use that for the glory of God? Or is it something that as Christian we should just stay away from and make pancakes. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
The second we get off this podcast, Catherine and I are going to a church down the road for their fall fest. So,
well, but the thing is, okay, so I think you have to kind of critically think. So I
yeah,
don't have an issue celebrating anything that God made. So we're not afraid of spiders or bats or pumpkins or any, like, it's not like the whole
yeah,
thing is tainted, because to me, like, my God made those. And so we're going to enjoy them. And so I think with churches that have a heart to outreach in that way, I don't know. I think they need to be thoughtful. I think a
yeah,
fall fest, that feels different to me,
yeah,
or there's a church here that does like a celebration of life and doesn't use the term Halloween and doesn't use, like some of the other stuff. Like, you're not going to have like demonic stuff or like ghosts.
yeah,
Because again, there's like spiritual stuff behind all of that. And so I think if we're thoughtful, we can actually have a lot of meaningful fun, and we can like teach our kids that, like, hey, we actually have a reason to celebrate, but we're very intentionally celebrating this.
yeah,
We're not celebrating that.
yeah. Because it's like I had this debate a couple times with a few students this week, because so I sent in our leadership group chat. I was like, hey, like, just a poll that was like, is it okay for Christians to celebrate Halloween? And I made it yes or no, because I feel like people have a hard time making that a definitive yes or a definitive no, because all
Right.
Christians understand to some degree that it crosses the line at some point. And
Right.
then the question comes in, where's the line?
Right.
And that's when it gets spicy. I think with everything that Christians could consider sin is like, if we're trying to find where the line is, the reason we're trying to find the line is so we can get as close to it as possible while being
Right.
innocent. And
Right.
in this case, it's like, it feels like an innocent thing to find the line for. But in
Right.
reality, it's got this demonic backbone to it. And when we
Hmm.
ignore the demonic side of Halloween, then we are, like you said earlier, opening ourselves up to things that we don't want to be opened up to.
Right. And I think, because it's hard to ask a question, should Christians celebrate Halloween?
Yeah.
I think a better question is, should you celebrate Halloween? Because for me, absolutely not. Like, I have come to
Wow.
the point of conviction where I am not going to. And I think that there are people who the Holy Spirit really is stirring, and there's like a danger that they sense, and they're like, man, I'm going to have to give some stuff up. And it's hard. I
Mm.
think that's a sign from God. It is a sin for you. Don't do it.
Yeah.
But then there are people, like you said, with like churches, they want to use it as outreach. It's like, I don't think we're in the place to tell people what to do. I think we need to help them hear from the Holy Spirit, and then also be honest about what you're participating in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah. No,
good.
because, oh, no, you got some, Derek?
Well, yeah. So I was
Oh,
like, so I wonder, how do you navigate those types of conversations with people? Because obviously, there's a
mm,
long list of like those things that have come close to the line. Like one that Austin and I always talk about is like secular music. Another one that comes up is
mhm.
like cursing and things like, it's these things that
Hmm.
they slowly can pull you further and further away from Christ. And so how do you think we
Right.
like healthily have those conversations with people with, because obviously it's difficult. People don't want their lives to change too much. It's like, oh, Christine, that's your
Right.
conviction. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
so how do you
Hmm.
think as Christians do we navigate those things? Because obviously people have been hurt by like churches who tell them what to do. If you're
Right.
not doing this, you're going to hell. How do we healthily like invite people in to have these life-changing conversations?
That's good.
Right. Well, I think one, we offer people another option.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's not either like go out for Halloween or stay at home alone in your dorm room, you know?
yeah.
It's like, hey, so that's one thing. Every year on October 31st, we have a Flapjack Fest. And that's strategic because we want students to have a place to go. Because if they're
Mhm.
not with us, we
They're going to
know
be
where they're
somewhere
probably
else.
going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you have to show them that there's another way. And part of the reason why Christian community was so important for me is, for the first time in my life, I realized that I could have fun and not sin. And
Yeah.
so I think we have to create spaces where people can have a lot of fun, but then not sin and not violate their conscience. And not where, like, well, some people are violating their conscience and some people aren't, but it's probably less than what it would be.
Hmm.
And so I think you have to show people that there's another way. So it's kind of become a tradition here, and so now it's not weird for us to know that we're going to get together. You're not going to be left out. It's not going to be lame. And you have a safe place to invite your
Yeah.
friends to where they're not going to be worshiping the devil accidentally,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like built into our culture. It's something that we look forward to, but we're very intentional with what we celebrate. So I think one, helping people see that you can have fun and you don't need that. And
Yeah.
like, you didn't like have to like chop off your arm so that you could have a good time,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think just showing them that it's possible to still have fun and not sin.
Yeah, because it's funny. With the year we pioneered Chi Alpha at Southeastern, I can share the story because they're not going to care. But so we had small group on Halloween night because it was a Monday that year, and after like at that small group, one of our students, Dalton, gives his life to Jesus, and he's led to the Lord by one kid who then leaves small group and goes to a party to which he sees another guy from that small group at that party, and they are doing things that they shouldn't have been doing at the party.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like they were in that sanctification process. Now they're not doing the club scene, but
Mm-hmm.
now they're heading up like a hangout that night for
Mm-hmm.
Chi Alpha students because they're like, I didn't have an option that night, or I
Right.
didn't feel like I did. So now I want to give a holy option to those students.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's like, I guess offering something there. And it's like, I had another, I guess, conversation with one of our students because they were trying to start a small group hangout at haunted houses this week. And I was like, I think we need to pump the brakes there.
Yeah.
And so, like, are you like, have you looked into like the demonic side of those things? Because I feel like I'm a spiritual person, but I'm not like I'm not deep into that
You're not a
realm. Is that something
demonologist
you've
like
looked into at all?
Eric True.
No, like Pastor
Right.
Eric Kroll.
Right. No, I haven't. Well,
Yeah.
I know a little bit about it, but I just remember when I was in college, and it's so interesting because and every year in our Chi Alpha, we preach on unholy curiosity. And it's like, have you ever noticed how we can be very, very curious about things that are unholy, but there's not like most students are like, I just can't wait to read the whole Bible. I'm like just so curious about what the whole thing says. But it's like, hey, I want to know what's at that haunted house, And it's like it's almost like it's not fair, the things that we're naturally drawn to.
Yeah.
And so I think one, that's something to like pay attention to. But then also like training ourselves to like what we should be interested in. So for example, when I was in college, I got saved and there was a group of us that were like, we really need to like know who the enemy is so we know how to fight him, like we need to study demons and all this other stuff. I'm not sure if that's ever happened to you. But somebody who was so wise, they said, we are not trying to understand the darkness, we're trying to understand the light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you understand the light, you're going to know everything and have everything that you need. And so I don't need to go to all the haunted houses to know what's in them. It's darkness and it's fear and it's celebrating death. And often it is blaspheming Jesus. And so I don't need to pay the money, because that's another thing when they're like, well, what's really wrong with it? I was like, like how much money did you spend to do that? Are you being faithful to the Lord with your money?
Yeah.
And then time wise, it's like, you're like, oh, I can't show up to do things that I need to do for Jesus. It's like, okay, how much time did you spend investing that? Or like
Yeah.
in Louisiana, we're the top state that spends money on Halloween decorations,
Wow.
like to the tune of like millions of dollars, maybe more than that, And
Yeah.
it's like, is this really just like what we want to be investing in as people? If I can only give so much of my money to certain things, do I want any of it set aside for that? And so I think there's like bigger questions attached with, you can go lots of directions.
No, for sure.
Definitely. You had said something that I didn't want to like speed past. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but you were saying your kids can't dress up as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, what was the thought process behind like the dressing up? Because obviously the haunted houses and things of that nature like definitely scream demonic. But I was wondering like something as simple as like people wanting to dress up in a certain way. I was wondering like why pull away from that as well.
Well, something that has really, I guess, like challenged my husband and I is that they're just like, witches and warlocks and people who serve Satan that make fun of and mock the fact that Christian kids dress up for Halloween. And so it's like a thing. So yeah, just like hearing that, it's like, well, not with
Yeah,
mine.
right.
And so it's a little bit of a sacrifice, but again, we're really serious about celebrating. We have lots of things that we do in the year, and they can, like I said, they can dress up for other reasons and on other days, but not on that day and not for that reason.
Yeah,
So
I listened to like a few different like stories of former witches and warlocks just this week who are now like followers of Jesus, and they're
yeah,
talking
what did they
about how,
say?
well, yeah, they were like literally talking about how when they were doing these things, it's like Halloween was a sacred night for worshiping Satan, and it was like how they used to, like you said, laugh at Christians for allowing their kids to celebrate. He's like, you don't understand what you're opening your children up to. And
Right.
like, all right, I'm gonna be real. The right behind this wall, there is one of my neighbors has thousands of dollars of Halloween decorations in their yard, and it's all demonic looking stuff. Leo's not going to that house ever. I'm not ever letting him go in there because I don't know what's behind those walls. I don't know what spiritual practices are going on there. And I feel like as parents, our job is to protect our children from those, like opening our children up to those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, because my oldest daughter, she's 6 now, but she's noticed, she's like, why don't we get a dress up, or why don't we celebrate Halloween? And so she's kind of like, asking about it. And I was like, well, baby, we love and we honor Jesus, and we just don't feel like that loves and honors Jesus really well. So we don't celebrate that. And she's like, well, when I'm older, I'm going to celebrate Halloween. And I was like, well, when you're 18, you can pray about and you can decide whatever the Lord leads you. But until then, God has given you to me, your daddy, to raise you the way that he's put in our heart to raise you. So until then, we're just going to do it our way. And so I think it's important to ask the questions of like, I'm not trying to like steal all your fun, but if I see a danger that I know that you don't see, it would be unloving to let you walk into it. And so I think that's some of the bigger, just like the bigger questions of like, what is attached to this? What are we opening ourselves up to? And is even worth it? Like, I feel like as Christians, spiritual warfare is so real in all the other ways. Like, I definitely don't want to invite in more than I'm already going to get anyway. And
100%.
so it's like, if you could just leave it alone, try it, see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to get so mad at my mom growing up because she was like you, where she stood on the
Oh, for
ground that
real?
I was not allowed to trick or treat once my mom came to know Jesus. We had no, like, my mom, love you, mom. I know you're listening. She was kind of like bah humbug with it to some degree. Like, she'd turn the lights off on the house. If trick or treater knocked on the door, nothing, wouldn't give out anything. But like, I understand why she did that. And I remember in high school, I think it was my senior year, all my friends were going to the mortuary, like a haunted house in New Orleans. And I wanted to go so bad. And like, I pestered my mom for weeks and she did not budge. And I was so mad at her in the moment. But now looking back, I see that she was protecting me. I just didn't understand it. But I think also, as people get older, there's a lot of college students who are like, okay, I still don't understand why I shouldn't. Maybe kids, it's like, oh, they're more susceptible to spiritual things. But like, as you were speaking, it made me think like we are like aligning ourselves with things that don't honor Jesus and even to some degree dishonor him. And so it's like, would we go to a party dishonoring someone we loved? No.
Right.
Like, we wouldn't even consider doing, like, if like for Derrick, it's like there was a party about, oh, we hate Kalen party. Like, you wouldn't go to that. But then
Right,
what if
right.
they mask it as, but then they're going to mask it and make it all
I really
pretty.
just
It's
want
like,
to go to
oh,
a
it's not a
party.
we hate
I
Kalen
really
party.
want to go to a party so badly. I'm going to go. No, it's like, no, bruh. Like, but I love the
We wouldn't
people
play
talking
with that.
about, let's have a holy option. I love that. That's so good
Yeah.
because in Christianity, there is a lot of self-sacrifice. Granted, we've never sacrificed more than Jesus has, but there is a lot of self-sacrifice in regard to that. But I love that, like, we as believers shouldn't just be telling people no, 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 but like, here's a holy option as well. And I love that. And I feel like that would be so much easier for Christians who do struggle with giving up these things to be able to know that there is a holy option. Like, I think that's a beautiful thing within that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like finding ways to look less like the world instead of more like the world? Because like I
Mhm.
think we say, like Christians say it all the time, we're in the world, but we're not of the world. And it's like, what are we reflecting? Or when people see our lives and the way we live, do we look exactly the same, but we go to a different place on Sunday, or do we look like Jesus?
Right.
Right. That's the same
Right.
people that's like, I'm gonna go to a Halloween party, but I'm gonna dress like an angel. You know what I'm saying? So like, cause I'm in the
Mm.
world, but not up. And it's like, bro, what's gonna show
With the little
people?
short skirt, of
Right. Right. Austin in a little short skirt. That'd be great. But like, it's
course.
like, what's going to reflect Jesus more? You
Right.
denying yourself, or you trying to find a way to still get what you want? And self denial is going to be the most accurate depiction of Christ in your life by doing that.
Right. Well, and I think Jesus came to like give life and give it abundantly. So it's not like you can't have any fun because you belong to the Lord. I think it's one of those like we have to constantly figure out what does it look like to honor God. And so there are just things that it's like yeah, when you're talking about Halloween and like the spirits behind it, like fear and darkness and death, it's like those things don't honor God. And then we're told in Philippians, like whatever is true and honorable and lovely and praiseworthy and excellent, think about such things. And it's like, okay, if you apply that scripture to what you're meditating on during Halloween, does that line up? Like I
Yeah.
think it's like if we're thoughtful, then you can kind of see it just doesn't fit. But yeah, I think we need to be creative and just intentional with like how we celebrate and what we focus
No,
on.
Yeah.
definitely. So I say not to shift gears completely, but like so as we because there's a term that's thrown around a lot is like pagan holidays and how should Christians respond to pagan holidays. So naturally
Hmm.
after Halloween, nobody cares about Thanksgiving. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just after
I love
Halloween,
Thanksgiving. It's so good.
it's Christmas season,
Well, when you
and
don't
so
have Halloween.
right. So it's
Right.
like you go from I don't you know what I'm saying? Like we go from flapjack, you know what I'm saying, to Christmas.
Yeah.
Right.
How should we navigate Christmas as believers, given the fact that it does originate from a pagan holiday? It overarching is Jesus. Sure, and that depends on
Hmm.
if you're a believer or not. But the overarching theme is Jesus and the birth of Jesus. Praise the Lord. But like, how should Christians navigate things like that when it comes to, like pagan holidays with Christmas and Easter and stuff like that?
Right. So I think those ones are a lot easier to kind of like find a holy option than Halloween,
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I do know that there are Christians that are like, the whole thing was a pagan holiday, no Christmas trees, no nothing, we're just not going to celebrate. I think that's the danger of when you're like, well, somebody stole Christmas and made it not about Jesus and now it's ugly, so we're just not going to celebrate. And, Easter, that's a pagan holiday, so we're just not going to celebrate. It's like, okay, no matter like for Christians, that is about the resurrection of Jesus. So you
Yeah.
are missing a huge opportunity if you get more focused on the Easter bunny and the eggs.
Yeah.
But the beauty is like you don't have to do that,
Mhm.
like there are creative ways to it's so funny. So for Easter, we do we do a Jesus treasure hunt.
I
So
like it.
we use eggs and it's in my yard. But basically the point is that it's like Jesus has good gifts for us. You just have to go out and find them. And so it's not, you know, so my kids can relate to their friends, but it's a different we are intentionally teaching them to celebrate and do something
That's so
different.
cool.
And then for Christmas, it's like, hey, so like Jesus came. I have some friends that it's like Jesus got 3 gifts for Christmas, so you're gonna get 3 gifts for Christmas. And it's like something you want, something you need, and something to read. And so I thought that was really creative. For us, for Christmas, we make our gifts. And so it's really getting to the point where it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time.
I'm
But
sure.
like Christmas we're not a part of the commercialism or
Mhm.
whatever, which it would probably be a lot easier to do
Boys.
that.
I'm sure.
But it's our family tradition is like we make our gifts because like I don't know, it's more meaningful. And like I made this like God with Jesus. Well, he didn't make Jesus, but you know what I mean.
Oh,
So
yeah. Begotten.
No, that man, you're like
This is
the
right.
begotten son.
holy
Yeah.
option queen. Like that's dope, bro. I'm
I
not gonna
know,
lie.
really. Is that an intentional thing of trying to remove the paganism out of the holidays that we want to represent Christ in?
Okay, so I will tell you, I don't actually think a lot about removing paganism because, again,
Mhm.
I think that's termed negatively. I try very hard to intentionally celebrate what we value. So, I mean, I guess a Christmas tree might be pagan. However, it's really convenient to hang my keychains on. So, you know, call it what you want. And it's something that my kids can relate to and share stories with their friends when it's like, oh, we put up our Christmas tree. And it's like, yeah, we did too. What's on yours? And so it becomes like a place where we can have conversations. So yeah, I don't think, because we're not going to undo anything in our culture. Like
For sure.
Christians aren't going to like steal Halloween and like take it away from the culture and make it a religious holiday. We're not going to do that. But there can be little pockets of people where there's like breathing space to intentionally celebrate and honor what is life-giving while we choose not to participate in things that aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, because I mean, Jesus came to redeem the unredeemable to some degree. It's like
Mhm.
all of these people were people who were far from him. All his disciples had no relationship with him until they did. And like Jesus kept redeeming people. And I feel like to some degree, as Christians, we also have an opportunity to redeem days of the year. But
Mhm.
like you were saying, like with Halloween, it's like some things aren't redeemable. Like
Right.
with Christmas, a tree is not demonic, but a literal demon in the yard outside next to me, that's demonic. There are
It's
witches,
demonic.
cauldrons, big
Yeah.
old 20-foot skeletons. Like that is it. As much as people want to make it the same, it's not. Like
No.
Right.
Halloween is a spiritual holiday. It is a significant day for Satanists. And to ignore that fact as a Christian is to be ignorant to the reality of the situation and to open
Right.
yourself up to spiritual things that I don't want to have any demons. Like, I don't want demons
Right.
in my home. I don't want demons
Right.
around my kid. So, like,
Right.
I guess to some degree, I'm like thinking through what I even want Halloween to look like for Leo as he grows up. Like, am I going to go to, I would say you're an extreme to some degree of none of it, but we're going to redeem and do other things. Or
Yeah.
is it going to be like, hey, he's going to be allowed to go trick or treat, just not at the house across the street? Like, I don't know.
Right.
Right, because that was
Right.
something that
Um,
was like very much a norm to me. Like we was in that thing trick or treating. We was going to the rich neighborhoods to go and trick or treat where they got the king size.
They gave full
Yeah,
size candy
what they got the
bars. Yeah.
king size Kit Kat and all that. We used to do that. You know it, bro. What the crazy part is, after we'd go trick or treating, my mom we'd have all the candy and we'd like put it on the kitchen table, and my mom would have to check it. She would check each piece of candy because people will put things in candy and drug people.
she was
And
just
it's
taking her
like,
tithe.
My mom did the same
you know,
thing. My mom
but
did the
Yeah,
that's
same
my
thing.
mom did when
crazy.
I was like
And
very
it's
little.
like, oh wow, yeah, this isn't demonic. Bro, people are like lacing candy that they're giving to kids. And it's
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, that's just in the spirit. That's just what Halloween is. You just gotta check your candy. And it's like, okay,
You just got to know that you're risking your life to eat that
exactly.
candy.
It's like when you put it in perspective, it's like, dang, should should we be
Mhm.
celebrating this? You know what I'm saying? Like that's
But
Right.
but even beyond razor blades in your apples and like lacing
mm,
candy, it's like if I was a witch, I think I would do some little spells over this candy that they're giving to kids.
yeah,
And like
bro.
I've heard of stories of things like that happening. I'm not a witch, I'm not a warlock. I can't
Praise
confirm any of
God.
that. Yeah, but like when we don't know who's giving our kids this candy. We don't know
Right.
what spiritual things are happening inside of these homes and what we're opening ourselves up to. And to some degrees, rather be safe than sorry. I'm just going to go to Sam's and buy the candy.
Bro, like
Like,
that's
Right.
crazy. Like that's the same
It's
thing.
like, honey, I'll buy you your own king size candy bar.
Exactly,
I'll
bro.
yeah.
do
Like
that
you
for you.
shouldn't be taking candy from strangers. Like, bro, this is
Mhm.
insane. Like I'm not doing
Right.
I'm not doing this with my kids, bro. We're not taking candy from strangers who could be doing God knows what. Like, oh my gosh, yep. I'm sorry. You've convinced me.
Right.
But because honestly, when Austin and I was talking
Vince,
about
wow.
this, I'm so convinced, bro. This is like not dumb, but like, how do we not see this? Like, how can we be so myopic, so
Yeah.
short-sighted to understand that, bro, the Bible tells us that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but it's about like spiritual authorities that's going on, that the devil is the like the ruler of this earthly kingdom. And it's like, bro, why are we moving not vigilant? Like we have to be wise with the way that we're
Yeah.
moving, because these things can
Mm.
really hurt like your children or even your own spiritual health and walk within God, but for what? To
Right.
Yeah.
be like everybody else. And it's like, but Christ
Right.
calls us to be different. Like that's just crazy. That's crazy.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like even just doing like a logical, like cost benefit analysis,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like what it costs to participate is not what you're getting back in benefits, of like, if you need to just go buy your own candy.
The next
But
day,
I
like
just
Austin.
remember, right,
Austin
right.
always buys candy the next day because it's always on sale.
Because
Why
it's on
wouldn't you?
sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. See, redeemed of the
Come on.
Lord. There you go. Um, but yeah, no, I think it's just like, because I just remember as I kind of like grew into this conviction, it was not overnight. I didn't always, I wasn't always like this, but I just remember kind of asking the questions and then just like feeling the conviction of like, if there's nothing wrong with it, then why do I feel bad about it?
Yeah.
Or like, why am I trying to like figure out so hard how to do this in a safe way when maybe it's just better to like redirect completely? And so,
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Anyone who has the conviction, if there's like a question in your heart or like in your mind of like, is this okay for me? I think the best way that we honor Jesus is just to yield to it, of like,
Yeah.
just try it, and whatever you feel like you need to do. Because even, yeah, like Austin, we're different, like you're gonna
Hmm.
do what you want with Leo, but you're gonna have to stand before God.
Yeah.
And so
Oh, definitely.
you have to use wisdom in what you expose him to and what you allow him to participate in. So
Yeah.
that's my
Because
biggest thing.
yeah, it's like Paul in Romans 14 talks about how it's like, if you feel convicted about something, then it is a sin for you. Like, regardless
Mhm,
of whether it is like a explicit sin in the Bible, like not everything is down to conviction, but there are some
mhm,
things that if we feel like it's a sin and we do it anyway, then
mhm,
it's a sin. And I think when Christians have this question of should I participate in these things, yet we proceed to do it anyway while feeling convicted about it, then it becomes sin
mhm.
whether we like it or not.
Definitely.
And
Right.
because I think some people are still listening and they're like, okay, yeah, but is it a sin to participate? Like, is it a sin
Mhm,
to participate in Halloween? And the
mhm,
answer is like, are are you convicted about it to some degree? If you are, then yes.
mhm.
If not, then maybe you should start thinking about what the roots are of this holiday. Maybe you should
Right.
start thinking about what it is you're celebrating and what you are yoking yourself with. Because if you are knowingly yoking yourself with evil, then you are celebrating things that dishonor God.
Right.
So I have a humble
Yeah.
question. So like Kaylin and I, we got like I'm looking at candy like right there on my kitchen table. Like we have candy to give to my students like on Halloween just to bless
Mhm.
them. It's like should I not give them this candy? It's like
I, I'll let Christine answer that.
Well, I want to hear what
With
Austin
my
has
answer.
to say.
Hey, I'm gonna pray over that candy. Like I'm going to hand out candy on Halloween,
Mm,
but like from an angle of because I don't want people to they're gonna go to all these houses. Why not have some holy candy in the mix?
mm.
Right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in that, but like I feel like I can control the controllables, and to some degree that's a controllable, and I'm going to offer some form of spiritual benefit to it. Maybe I write a Bible verse on the candy. I don't know. Am I Christine? Tell me if I'm stupid. Like
Well, because
she's
Derrick,
about
you're
to
a
throw.
teacher, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that can like be a blessing to the kids. And yeah, I don't know. So I think, yeah, pray over it, be intentional, do whatever you can. I, don't- yeah, just because everybody else is handing out candy at their house. I don't know, Austin, I think, like examine that.
Yeah.
But because I think what it does is it communicates that like this is still worth doing because I'm doing it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so my light's off, but I'm not there because I'm off having a flapjack fest. So I'm not like
There we
intentionally
go.
shunning people.
Bro, we need to like normalize flapjacks everywhere on
We are
October
celebrating the
31st, bro. Like that's
Reformation.
what we gotta do.
No,
That's
seriously.
what it gotta. Hey, they got Columbus Day changed to Indigenous People Day. We're gonna get Halloween
You don't need
changed to
to change
Reformation
it. It
Day, bro. Like
already
that's
is,
what
you
we.
know?
Yeah. So I feel like it's like if for people listening, for me, I'm definitely going to have a conversation with Catherine about examining our motives for Halloween. But it's like I guess for everyone, it's like, man, what first of all, what are your convictions when it comes to Halloween? If you some for some
Right.
people right off the bat, you're like, I know what it is. I shouldn't be doing this. I was going to a haunted house right after I'm listening to this. Maybe you shouldn't anymore. And examine what are we doing and what are we glorifying in our actions? Because if we are glorifying things
Right.
that dishonor God, then we then are also dishonoring God. And
Right.
how can we say we're followers
Yeah.
of Christ yet dishonor him with our life? And
Right.
that's just something we really need to be serious about. Yeah, you got
Yeah,
something?
and
Yeah.
I think it's part
Mm.
of like a like defensive thing of like we want to be really intentionally like protective of the investment that God has made in our life. So for example, I before I got saved, I really struggled with fear. And I didn't even know what it was until I got saved and it was like so like I would see things. I was like yeah, it was bad. I and then after I gave my life to Jesus, it's like, "Oh my goodness, this is a spirit of fear." But then Jesus like died to cover that. And so I prayed and I rebuked it and God delivered me.
Wow.
But there was a moment where the Holy Spirit was like, don't walk back into doors that I have pulled you out of and shut off for you. And so I think we have a responsibility that if you've struggled with fear or anxiety or, you know, thoughts of death and suicide, then I'm like, okay, this is for you then. This is not something for you to participate because those are the things that are invited and welcomed in. And if you're asking the Lord to pull you out of that, or if he has, then don't jump back into the pool that you just got rescued out of. And so I think that's another aspect to think about of like, where has God pulled you from? And just don't, don't go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you struggle
Yeah.
with
No,
anxiety,
definitely.
yet you're
And then,
going to
oh,
go down a haunted house that will make you anxious. Like that is quite
Mhm.
literally the whole point. It is to make
yeah,
you
right.
anxious and
Or,
fearful.
right. Or go out with people that you're paranoid might want to hurt you, you know? And so it's like, don't do that
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And then I think in that same scripture, Romans, you were talking about, Austin, it's like if this thing would cause my
Yes.
brother or sister to stumble, then I should flee from it. And I think that it's important as believers with, and then on top of that, believers with
Mhm.
influence, making sure that we're taking opportunities to use our platform to show people something like very different. You know what I'm saying? And that like I can't just say that I know I'm covered in the blood. You know what I'm saying? And I know that I'm not finna have no demons walking around here messing with me. But like understanding that I have
Hmm.
people who look up to me who may not be as spiritually sound and who may not like think upon the things of Christ as often as I do, and that I have to use wisdom to separate myself from these things because whatever the leader does in
Right.
moderation, the people do in
Yep.
excess. You know what I'm saying? Or the other, it goes the
Right.
opposite way for good
Mhm.
things. You know what I'm saying? Whatever good things the leader do in excess, the followers will do in moderation. So understanding that mantle that I have to wear as someone who's influential for Christ, I have to be that much more intentional about being different and holding true to the things of Christ that
Hmm.
much more
Yeah.
That's
seriously.
good. Well,
So,
no, I appreciate that. That's really, and it's weird because I know, like, I have people that I dearly love who their kids go trick or treating,
Yeah.
and they love Jesus,
yeah.
and they
Mhm.
also do Chi Alpha, and so it's just one of those like we look at it differently. I don't think we can tell people what to do, but I think we need to help steer them to like these are the questions that I've had to answer. These are the
Mhm.
questions that maybe you want to work to answer to know if
Yeah.
like it's right for you. So
Right. Because it doesn't mean you love Jesus less. It's
right,
just like, how is this going to affect your witness?
right,
And, making sure you're making your witness as effective as possible at all times.
right, yeah.
It's
But
to some degree a
that's
level of
also
ignorance.
what
True.
is
Like we're when we do something like celebrating Halloween, it's like we're
Mhm.
ignorant of why we shouldn't, I guess. It's just like
Right,
we just don't know.
right, right. And it's because you saw the Halloween decorations in Sam's for 3 months, and so you thought it was Halloween. It's like I guess I should buy some of this stuff. It's funny because my
Yeah.
kids in the store, they're like, "I want to go see the pirate." They thought the skeleton was a pirate.
Leo is obsessed with Halloween decorations right now. No, like it's
No, it's
the
Really?
no.
it is the only way to get him home is he wants to go see Mr. Scary. It's one of the dudes across the
Wow.
street. And
Dude,
like
talk about
Oh my
unholy
God.
curiosity. Talk about
he
unholy
it's
curiosity.
natural.
For real.
Like, he always wants to see
Yeah.
Mr. Scary, the big scary guy, and the dragon. That's all he wants to see, and the big
Yep.
skeletons.
Yeah.
But I didn't teach
It's
him
so
that.
expected.
Well, and then I also think about, isn't there something in Corinthians? I didn't say this because I wasn't sure, but it's like if there's food that you know is sacrificed to idols and like you eat of it in front of someone who, it's like
Yeah, then
you're
it's
you're
sin.
basically sinning because of what it means to them that you're doing. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
think about
Yeah, I think that was
Halloween,
Romans
because it's like,
14.
oh,
That was
okay.
I was about
Yeah.
to say, I think that was in the same thing also was on.
Okay, because
Yeah.
it's kind of like if the witches are saying that what I'm doing is devoted to their like antichrist, then like far be it from me to do it because I'm sinning, because they're perceiving what I'm doing as like honoring someone that I'm not honoring, And so whenever it's like, "Oh, I'm a Christian, I can just like redeem it." It's like the people who run the show on that day are interpreting this very much differently than you are. And so,
Yeah.
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 I saw one of those former warlocks said, "You are having a one-night stand. You're having a one-night stand with Satan." I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, that's some
Dang.
insane. That was some insane language to add to
Yeah.
that. But he was
Right.
just trying to
Most
like
definitely.
amplify how serious it is.
Right. Well, and
So,
again, I think so here's something that'll really mess with your mind. I really enjoy Harry Potter. I thought the books were so good. Let me tell you, we were at a Chi Alpha. It was like the leadership summit like years ago. There was a student that had like demonic oppression, like threw up some crazy blue stuff because they had dabbled in the occult and all this other stuff. Basically, got delivered, walked into their campus pastor's office, and laid out all of their witchcraft material, including all of their Harry Potter books. So then I'm like, wait, 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 wait. This was all fine and dandy until the witch is associating Harry Potter
Harry Potter.
Yeah.
with what they're doing. And so Bub and I were like, dang, because to me, it was like, to the pure, all things are pure. But it's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
but I also don't want there to be a student that's struggling to walk into my house and be like, dang, here's an open door with these people. And so we threw it all away. We didn't even give it away because if I shouldn't be reading it, I don't want anyone else to be reading it. We
Right,
threw it
right,
all away.
right.
And it was one
Wow.
of those like, you talk about conviction. I didn't feel, it was like one of those like sad moments where I was sad because I was giving something up, but it wasn't like, I'm going to go to hell if I don't do this. It was literally like, I have a decision to make how I'm going to respond to and obey Jesus. And I just feel like this is the wisest decision to make. And so we just got rid of it. And so we don't do Harry Potter now either. So yeah, I'm just like a major stick in the mud,
And all right,
Bro,
so
like
you
Kaylin's
weren't even
reading Harry
convicted
Potter.
about it.
No, it was one of those, it was an association thing, not a conviction thing.
And that's where it gets spicy. Is people are like, "Oh, I don't feel convicted about it, so then I don't need to stop." And it's like, no, like just because you don't feel convicted about it, there's a lot of people sleeping with their girlfriends who don't feel convicted about it. That does not mean it's okay.
Well,
Yeah.
can I
What were you
tell
Right.
you
saying, Derek? Yeah.
something?
Oh,
The longer I've walked with Jesus, the less I have felt conviction. And so literally the Lord's like, in the beginning, you needed all the feels, but now you have the spirit of wisdom. So you can just decide to do the right thing. You don't need to feel any type of way about it.
That's so
And
good.
it is when people are like, I don't feel convicted. It's like, good, maybe you're pressing into spiritual maturity and you could just choose to do the right thing.
Preacher.
But like you said, like, and then you get to a certain point in your spiritual maturity, what you praying about it for?
Right.
You know what's
Right.
right from wrong.
And it's
You know
like,
what I'm
you
saying?
don't,
Because you
you don't
know
need to feel
Christ.
convicted about sleeping with your girlfriend. You just need to read the Bible and just do what it says.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no
you don't
feelings
need
needed.
Yeah, you don't need this new enlightenment word from God. You just need to be obedient to the last thing He told you to do. And like,
Right.
yeah, I
Right.
mean, wow.
Right.
That's so good. That's so good.
Who
Do y'all-
needs
do y'all
conviction
mind-
when you have
yeah.
wisdom?
Wait, say it again.
I said, who needs conviction when you have wisdom?
Facts. Like that's the sound bite.
So as people are listening, I just kind of want to wrap this up for a thought for them is what are we honoring with the way we live our life? And if we are honoring the devil with a specific action, maybe we should stop doing that action. Some things aren't redeemable. And as in like days, we can't always redeem Halloween. So maybe we should think about how we're living. And does this honor Christ? Do I want to keep doing it? So love you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Christine, for coming on. and as always, oh wait, we're going to have to get you on this. So I'm going to say, and as always, go encounter the kingdom of God. And then we all three are going to say, everywhere you go. Does that make sense?
Is it gonna like lag because of like the virtual aspect?
It might, but it'll just be funny. All right. And as always, go encounter the kingdom of God everywhere you go.
Everywhere you go.
Everywhere you go.